Well, this video took me a lot longer than I originally anticipated, but it's finally out. Welcome back to part 3 of Back to the Future Easter eggs and references. I'm T Woods. We have lots of games jammed into this video. I had way more than I originally thought I did when I split up part 2. So again, this will not be the final video within this series. I know, you're probably thinking, how could there still be more? Believe me, I couldn't believe just how many games there are that make a reference to such an iconic film series. I also was able to add a couple more games that I didn't originally have on my list, so tracking that footage down became a chore all in itself. So without further ado, let's get started. First up is Need for Speed Unbound. This game has a very unique art style. The city and cars look about what you would expect from a typical racing game, but the tire smoke effects and all the characters have a neat 2D appearance. With all the crazy effects that show up while driving, they've also added one to a specific car. Yep, the DMC-12 DeLorean, which can only be unlocked for purchase within the online mode. If you manage to keep your speed at a steady 88 miles per hour, it will leave fire trails behind the car. It's a neat effect and it fits very well for fans of the Back to the Future movies. If you want a better look at the flames, try loading up photo mode with the effect active and get some cool screenshots of it. I also forgot to mention in the previous video that the hover car in Burnout Paradise actually does this too, when activating Nitro, but only when the hover mode isn't activated. In Gran Turismo 7, during the American Sunday Cup 600, you will take part in 5 races, one being on Willow Springs International Raceway. If you take a close look at some of the NPC characters racing alongside you, you might notice someone driving a DeLorean. Well, if it isn't Emmett Brown himself. He must be unaware he's at a plutonium because he's actually driving a lot faster than 88. So fast, in fact, that in most cases he's leading the race. Team Fortress 2 has a couple small references. If you select the sniper on the character screen, he does the exact same stance that Doc Brown does in part 3. There's also a couple of cosmetic clothing items for the medic. This Hawaiian shirt outfit is called Doc's Holiday, and it slightly resembles the red shirt Doc wore when he returned to pick up Marty for part 2. They also added a hairstyle called Einstein. This is more of a reference to Albert Einstein, but Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis used a lot of Einstein's likeness for Doc Brown's character when they made the movies. In the original release of Resident Evil 2, there's actually a very small squinter you miss at Easter egg. If you enter the STARS office within the Raccoon City Police Department, you'll find a corkboard on the wall, on either side of the office. Upon first inspection, you probably wouldn't notice much, but some random files and an extremely pixelated photograph.
Why is it still blurry?
That's all the resolution we have. Making it bigger doesn't make it clearer.
It does on CSI Miami.
This is actually a behind-the-scenes cast photo of Christopher Lloyd, Michael J. Fox, and Mary Steenburgen from Back to the Future Part 3. There is an HD mod called RE Enhanced that drastically improves the visuals. Now you can see the photo much more easily and can actually tell what it is, even from afar. The photo also appears in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis as well, but was removed completely for both remakes. Additionally, you can find a DeLorean covered by an American flag by the Stagla gas station in the original RE3, but again, has been removed from the cutscene in the remake, since Capcom decided to block off this area and remove this portion from the gameplay completely. In Talos Principle 2 on South 3 Circular Oasis, if you make your way to the bottom left-hand corner of the map, you will find the next Easter egg. Out in this vast open wasteland of nothing but friggin' sand for miles,
I don't like sand.
you will find this lonely palm tree all by itself. If you keep heading past it to the rock, you will find this out-of-time license plate and the rope banner that was used near the end of the second movie when Doc saves Marty from Biff. But what scene I think this Easter egg is actually referring to is when Doc's DeLorean is struck by lightning, sending him to 1885. The banner then falls from the sky, leaving Marty stranded yet again in 1955. This one is kind of a neat reference. Within the movie tie-in game for the Polar Express film, you might spot a flux capacitor above the firebox in the engine room level. Now I know this is really hard to tell just because of how dated the graphics are, but this was actually ripped straight from the movie itself. In this blink and you miss it moment, you can spot the flux capacitor in the background. But this wasn't even the only reference made in the film either. On the newspaper clipping of Santa's on strike, you might spot the mall Santa's picketing a sign that references Lone Pine Mall. Santa's sleigh leaves firework trails behind it as it takes off, similar to the fire trails that the DeLorean leaves. The reasoning behind all these references is because the movie was also directed by Robert Zemeckis. Some fan theories suggest that this train might be one of Doc Brown's time train prototypes, suggesting that the Polar Express takes place within the same universe. Now, I'm not saying that it is set within the same universe, but it is an interesting theory to think about. The train also has a few steam whistles that play from different trains, one of them actually being from the Sierra Railway No. 3, which is the same train used in Back to the Future 3. In another scene referencing the films, the nameless boy pulls the whistle cord, which plays out the same way it did in Part 3, when Doc pulled it with pretty much the exact same quote.
I've wanted to do that my whole life!
In the most recently released game on the list, Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl also has a neat reference. If you head to the cooling towers region at this location of the map, you'll spot a bunch of train tracks that you can walk down. If you have a keen eye, you might spot a set of infinite fire trails just like the ones from Part 3. This neat little mobile game called Game Dev Tycoon allows you to start your own video game development studio out of your garage. You will have opportunities to make parody movie tie-in games based off popular 80s movies, one of them being for Back to the Future, or in this case, Forward to the Past. Additionally, there's also a covered DeLorean parked in the garage. Well, this game refers to it as a LaDorian. Another game that has some funny parodies of some 80s movies is in the game Lake. You work as a postal worker who's delivering packages. On your routes, you will stumble upon a little video store that you can deliver a package to. Greeting you right at the front door of the Flick Shack is a poster for Back to the Present, a parody of the Back to the Future poster, but with Marty McFly being swapped out for a female. On the poster, you can sort of make out some of the other names that are parodies of the original actors and even the director, Robert Zemeckis, or in this case, Rob Zemeckis, or however you want to pronounce it. Within the store, you'll spot way more than just posters to the Back to the Future, but an entire library of parodied versions of classic VHS movies. Being that this game is set in 1986, there's a ton of very recognizable covers here, like the Terminator, Ghostbusters, Gremlins, The Fly, The Evil Dead, Star Wars, and E.T. to name a few, all with very funny titles and parodied poster art. For instance, here's what they did to The Godfather.
Look how they massacred my boy.
In the CarX Street within the Mountain Drive region, you can find an in-game garage that has quite a lot of objects from the films. Of course, they include the covered DeLorean, various time machine parts like the flux capacitor, plutonium chamber, and the exhaust vents, plus the out-of-time license plate and the white-walled tires from Part 3. It also includes the flux capacitor sketch and some other info ripped straight from the movies, like the specific gears and the Night of the Clock Tower lightning strike. On the other side of the garage is a hoverboard and Marty's lenticular rainbow hat. Crazy just how many items they crammed into this area. Wasn't really expecting all this work from what used to be just a mobile game. In the game Stray, players will find themselves meeting a couple of familiar looking characters. On chapters 6 and 7, The Slums and Dead End, you will meet up with a robot named Seamus who bears a striking resemblance to Marty McFly. The name Seamus comes from Marty's middle name, which was revealed in the animated series and mentioned once in Telltale's Back to the Future game. But most remember Seamus as Marty's great-great-great-grandfather who he met in 1885. You will have to help Seamus reunite with his father named Doc, who again looks like Doc Brown. Doc will even make a reference to 1.21 gigawatts. He'll also ask you to obtain a weapon called the Defluxer. Helping him get the weapon repaired, he will reward you with the Defluxer mod for the cat suit, and come with you to reunite with Seamus. Back 4 Blood is no stranger to its Easter egg references. As far as most notable Easter eggs go, they've made references to several horror films, like The Shining, Shaun of the Dead, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, It, and Evil Dead, which I touched on in a previous Easter egg video. But they also have a very cool Easter egg for Back to the Future as well. During Act 2, just outside the police station, you might just notice a random cable being hung across the road attached to lampposts. If you follow that cable, you will find a ladder leading up to a C-clamp. You might also recognize a very familiar looking cable connection. Follow that connection all the way up to the clock tower. If you look closely at the clock face, it's permanently stuck at 10:04, just like the movie. Underneath the clock, you can even see a chunk of the trim that's been broken off the tower, as a reference to the most memorable scene in the first movie. Such a cool Easter egg, this one definitely caught me by surprise. In Red Dead Redemption 2, there's actually a couple references, one of them being the most obvious, and that's when some male NPCs get startled, they might say an iconic expression made famous by Doc Brown.
Great Scott!
The other one is kind of obscure. If you head over to Big Valley, just slightly north of Owangila, there's a small native burial ground. You can find a tomahawk here in the rock pattern, and may hear some creepy souls moaning from beyond the grave. This Easter egg will only work if you desecrate the burial site with fire. Once you do, you'll notice the rock with the skull being struck by lightning. This actually causes the game to activate an infinite thunderstorm. Now, I've done this enough times with some attempts not working to get the rain to turn into a thunderstorm. Most people have said that you have to go west of here to activate an obelisk at the top of this hill. Others have said that they don't think that this is tied to it. But you'll know if it worked if the thunderstorm persists after crossing this river. If the rain disappears before reaching the obelisk, you'll have to turn back and try it again. Certain chapters might also not make it work correctly. The chapter I managed to get it to stay was within chapter 3. Anything after chapter 5 caused it to disappear every time. Although I may have just been really unlucky. Come to the top of this hill and wait for the storm to fully set in. While you're here, you might as well interact with the obelisk where you'll find a map inside. On the plaque, you'll find a Latin phrase which translates to, "The hour flees, don't be late." This was one of many similar time-related phrases that would appear on a lot of old sundials back in the day. Now this might still be unrelated, but to me this phrase sounds like there's something to be found that can be easily missed if you're not fast enough. Now that you've got the thunderstorm active, quickly ride your horse far east of the map, south of Annisburg, at this location here. This trip can take you around 6 in-game hours to reach by horse. Just don't do anything that will trigger a loading screen, like fast travel or dying, because it can stop the thunderstorm entirely. So watch out for bandits on the road and a cougar once you reach this location. Trust me, I made it all the way here, and a dickhead mountain lion thought it would be funny to take me out once I arrived. But once you get here, you'll spot a bunch of burnt up trees. If you stand in the middle of them and wait, something will happen. As you can see at the top of the screen, I'm looking at the time of day. The time is frozen every time you hit the drop down, so I added a second clock to really get the full effect here, because the in-game time moves quite fast. But if you stand here and wait till just after 10 o'clock, yep, a massive lightning strike will hit this spot and kill you instantly at 10:04 p.m. There's actually a bit more to this than just the lightning. Most would just think that these are a bunch of trees that consistently get struck by lightning at a specific time. But there's actually a hidden message in the trees. Angling your camera in a specific way will actually make the tree spell out the word why. Why, you might ask? Well, maybe Doc Brown can help.
The intent here is to gain a clear perception of humanity. Where we've been, where we're going, the pitfalls and the possibilities, the perils and the promise. Perhaps even an answer to that universal question. Why?
Now, this might be a bit of a stretch and not be what the trees are actually referring to. But maybe Doc trying to solve the ultimate philosophical question of why we are here, or what is the meaning of life. The question in which nobody truly knows the answer to is maybe the same question people have on their minds when seeing this Easter egg. Why on God's green earth do these trees get struck by lightning at 10:04? Maybe no one will ever know. Or maybe this Easter egg means absolutely nothing, like how people tried to solve the Mount Chiliad mystery in GTA 5. We all know how in-depth Rockstar can get with their Easter eggs, and then later debunk them by saying that they are only there to make fans sweat about something with no true meaning.
Things in the game, like some of the Easter eggs and the things that captivate the gamer's imagination. So
that was all more up at the Rockstar North guys that kind of dealt with that. But obviously there's always a desire to put in these really complex Easter egg hunts and trails that the really dedicated players will follow. As with all Easter eggs, sometimes you just put them in to mess with people. They don't actually do anything, you just mess with people, right? Just to drive them a little bit crazy.
Staying on the topic of Rockstar, in my first video I showed all the references within GTA 5 and San Andreas. 3 weeks after that video, Rockstar released GTA 3, Vice City, and San Andreas definitive editions to lackluster reviews, to say the least. They've also released many new content updates for GTA Online over the years. One of them which contains a reference to the movies. In the Drug Wars update, you'll end up doing some missions for Dax. If you call him to request work, he'll likely give you the heavy metal mission right away. This mission is a bit of a double reference to Back to the Future and AMC's Breaking Bad. In this bit of dialogue at the start, Dax mentions 2 cooks in desperate need of copper wire.
We have 2 of the best, working off-grid in a camper van. They're out of their minds, spend most of their time making bombs out of copper wire. Yesterday they got raided, and they've asked us to help them get their supply of copper back.
This is more of a reference to the scene from Season 2 of Breaking Bad, where Walt and Jesse are stranded in the desert because of the RV's dead battery.
What one particular element comes to mind? Wire. Copper.
Once you get the supplies, head on over to the wind farm to deliver them to the cooks. Well, as you can see, I think only one of these guys here looks to be the brains of the operation. The younger guy in the bubble vest looks like he could either be a reference to Marty McFly or Jesse Pinkman, who in the pilot episode actually wore a red bubble vest as well. As for the actual cook, he could be GTA's version of Walter White. But I think it's more of a reference to Doc Brown just because of the white jumpsuit. If you look at their camper van's license plate, it's actually a reference to Twin Pines Mall. I never really drew comparisons to Back to the Future when I watched Breaking Bad, but the similarities to Doc and Marty are weirdly close. Old guy who knows a lot of science, teaming up with a teenage high school student, or in Jesse's case, a flunked out young adult. What's funny is that Walt, even though he's the oldest and the smartest of the two, actually hates the concept of time travel, which he argued about with Jimmy in Better Call Saul's series finale.
What would you do if you had a time machine? I mean, you can go backwards, forwards, where would you go?
Meaningless question. Time travel. The kind of time travel that you're thinking of is a scientific impossibility. It would violate the second law of thermodynamics.
In Grand Theft Auto 4 within Star Junction, GTA's version of New York City's Times Square, you'll notice that Rockstar didn't shy away from making some really cool looking ads plastered everywhere. One of them is actually an ad for their shark cards, which later meant a lot more in being the premium currency for GTA 5's online. But the shark breaking out of the ad is a bit of a reference to Jaws 19's hollow projection from Back to the Future 2. In Grove Street Games' definitive version of GTA Vice City, it got a somewhat fresh coat of paint and also a new set of achievements to unlock, and received an improvement update from Rockstar that fixed a lot of the issues with this now 3-year-old release. After purchasing Sunshine Auto Showroom, you'll be given a list of cars to acquire. Once you brought them all back to the garage, your reward will be a Deluxo, Grand Theft Auto's version of the DeLorean. Unfortunately, this one does not have hover and fly mode, like GTA 5's Online, but it does have a Back to the Future achievement tied to it. Find a nice open stretch of road, and once you get the Deluxo to its top speed, you're gonna see some serious shit. Nah, just kidding. But you'll unlock the Don't Need Roads achievement.
Hey Doc, you better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
While I'm at it, I might as well just show off all the other games that make this specific reference to Doc's most iconic quote, and there's a lot of them. Vice City also wasn't the first GTA game that had an achievement like this. In the old PlayStation port of GTA 3, it included a silver trophy called Where We're Going, We Don't Need Roads, where you had to complete Patriot Playground, a ride in the park, Gripped, and multi-story mayhem challenges. Each challenge mode requires you to go off-road to collect a bunch of objective markers, but you spend more time driving through extremely low-textured cardboard cutout trees with no collision and navigating a harshly uneven terrain. I guess that's where the joke comes from, because you definitely won't be on the road all that much while doing these challenges, but doing so gets you one trophy closer to platinum. That is all the games made by Rockstar for now, but with the inevitable release of GTA 6 and rumored GTA 4 and Red Dead Redemption 2 remasters on the horizon, I can only guess that Rockstar will most likely include more Back to the Future Easter eggs in their games moving forward. In Final Fantasy XV, after acquiring the Regalia Type F, take it out for a spin and activate the car's fly mode. Each of the characters will all have their own reaction to the car taking flight, with Noctis making the reference to Doc's quote.
Whoa! This is awesome! Taking the high road. Where we're going, we don't need roads.
In Astroneer, you can unlock the achievement Where We're Going, We Don't Need Roads, if you manage to stay airborne while driving a rover for 10 seconds or more. This can be achieved through various ways, such as hanging your rover from a winch over elevated terrain, attaching rocket thrusters, or driving the rover off ramps. Another game with very similar requirements for an unlockable achievement is in the game Pacific Drive. There's many ways that this can be achieved. If you manage to get your car airborne for more than 6 seconds while driving, either through ramps, speed boosts, anomalies, or a much easier approach. Drive over any of the railway bridges, because the game doesn't consider the rail bridges as paved roads, so you can drive right down the train tracks on the bridge to unlock the Where We're Going, We Don't Need Roads trophy. Yet again, we have another one that's very similar. In Rush, a Disney Pixar adventure, during the Cars levels, you can unlock a glide ability that can help you when you're going off jumps for a smoother landing. To unlock this achievement, you specifically have to play on the Bomb Squad level. Try utilizing the glide as much as possible while going off jumps, because if you manage to glide for 100 meters accumulatively throughout the entire level, you will unlock this slightly misleading achievement, We Don't Need Roads. And by misleading, I meant that the achievement requirements make it seem like you are supposed to do this all within a single glide. Within the Choose Your Own Adventure game 60 Seconds Reatomized and its spin-off 60 Parsecs, you can find multiple references. We'll start with 60 seconds. As a player, you are only given 1 minute to grab as much items to survive in a fallout shelter, and we'll try to see how long you can last. Each day you are presented with different events that'll be randomly generated to give you multiple outcomes of replayability. On one of these occasions you will hear a phone ring at the start of the day. Opening your journal will reveal just who's on the other line, someone who claims that they are from a nearby town called Hill Valley. It is a very small reference, and there is no real indication who exactly it is, but this isn't the only reference. If you follow a specific storyline about a crazy scientist and his cat, you can potentially unlock one of the game's many endings, as long as you choose the correct options. On any random day, the game will present you with many choices to potentially reach its ending. In one journal entry, it does actually have a bit of a reference to a vehicular contraption that the Doc is working on to get out of the blast zone. If you can reach the mad scientist ending successfully, you will get one final journal entry that even has a reference. Specifically with the line, Where We're Going, We Don't Need Journals. The game will end there and give you an achievement for getting its unique ending. In the spin-off sequel, 60 Parsecs, there is only one reference. The space crew will be randomly given a task that they will have to select an answer for. The log entry mentions that there was a flux capacitor blueprint that was found that could potentially get them out of their predicament. If you choose yes to build it, the device will blow up in their face. This choice has a 0% success rate of ever working, so there really is no benefit to selecting yes. If you select no, then there will be a neat message about a scientist from California who was the only one capable of making it work. I think we know exactly what wild-eyed scientist they are talking about. No, not that guy. This guy! The Crew games have had many Back to the Future references in the past. The majority of them I covered in the first video, but since then the Crew Motorfest is released and it also has a couple of references. After purchasing a DeLorean, take it out for a spin and get your speed up to 88 miles per hour, or 142 kilometers in this case. Hold down your rewind button once reaching 88 to unlock We Don't Need Roads achievement. Also, within the character customization options, you can buy a rainbow chrome hat, similar to the lenticular hat worn by Marty and his future son of 2015. In my first video, I somehow completely missed this bit of dialogue from one of Chris Harris's Top Gear missions in Forza Horizon 4. One of the titles that I mentioned in my first video was called Faster Than 87.2, which was a reference. But there's also another reference in the mission, All the Off-Road You Can EAT. Right at the beginning of it, Chris will also make a reference to Doc's quote.
The EAT has a silky smooth V6 diesel. It'll do 155 miles an hour on the road, but where we're going, we won't need roads.
While we're still talking about Forza Horizon, I previously mentioned that Forza Horizon 3 and 4 set the in-game train speed to exactly 88 miles per hour, and in Forza Horizon 5, that fact still stands. This will most likely carry on into future iterations of the Forza Horizon series as well. But besides the train, the game now actually has a Universal Icons car DLC that adds a few iconic movie cars licensed by Universal Studios. In the DLC, it has 3 versions of the DeLorean, so you can customize your very own to look like the ones from each movie. But there's actually a really cool thing that happens with the car once you reach 88. The car will light up as if you're about to enter temporal displacement. But that's about it. Nothing else happens, unfortunately. But it is still a very neat little nod thrown in there for the fans of the trilogy. You can even find some subtle references within the in-game chat feature. One of the selections you can find has the We Don't Need Roads quote, and you can even set your in-game name to Mad Dog. Probably not a reference to the movies at all, but it's still neat that they have it in there if you're a fan of Buford Tannen. Moving on from the We Don't Need Roads references, in the Hitman reboot series there's a small audio reference that can be heard in any level of the 3 Hitman games. There is an extremely small chance, and I truly mean small chance, because I played for countless hours before ever hearing it. While the guards are searching for you, one of them might shout out a funny line while you're being hunted.
What are you, a chicken McFly?
This being a reference to Marty's character flaw of being called chicken. This insult towards him was only used in the 2 sequels. Every time someone called him chicken, he felt like he had to prove something of himself. This was a pretty big plot point of the 3rd film, where by the end of it he had to overcome this by ignoring what people call him, so it wouldn't come back to bite him during the drag race against Needles.
I would have hit that Rolls Royce.
This flaw, even though he was never called a chicken in the first movie, was actually something that stemmed from how he felt about his dad, because he looked down on him for being a coward or never standing up for himself, up until he finally socked Biff in the face. With that being said, there's another game that makes this reference, and it's within a cutscene variation of Injustice 2. If you pair up the Green Lantern with the Flash, there is a chance that this specific dialogue between them will occur.
Can't we settle this with a race?
Why, Barry? Too chicken to fight?
Nobody calls me chicken.
There's even a reference to the Needles drag race within a recent update to Cyberpunk 2077. Heading over to this location and adjusting the clock to any time after 6 p.m., you'll have a chance to watch this little game of chicken. After the losing car plunges into the water, you'll have a chance to discover just who this racer actually was. Take a dive down into the water and have a look inside the car. You will find a female adrenaline junkie named Needles. Head onto the back of the car and you can find a heated exchange between her and Jen. Jen being a reference to Marty's girlfriend, Jennifer Parker. You'll discover that Marty actually died from this drag race within this alternative reality instead of messing up his hand. Now, this is not exactly the male version of Needles that we all remember, but it's still surprising that a little reference like this could be added so late to the game. But it's a welcome little nod to the movies. But this also isn't the only reference to the films. After Night City is opened up as early as Act 2, you'll be able to participate in Delamain's taxi missions. One of the side missions, titled Apostrophe, will require you to track down some rogue AI taxis. Delamain will experience different personalities depending on which taxi you are acquiring, one of which is located in North Oak. With this particular model, Delamain has developed an anxious fear of reckless driving and speeding, and will ask you to slowly and very cautiously make your way to HQ. If you don't listen to him and decide to go against his wishes and speed to the destination, he will override the car and stop it dead in the middle of the road till he calms down. Take a look at the speedometer. If you actually pay attention to the speed in which he will not let you exceed past, no matter how many times you try, he will never let you accelerate past 88 miles per hour. It's a very subtle reference and it is very hard to spot if you're not paying attention. There's also a specific ability in the perk tree that has a familiar looking scientist on the image. If you are keen to spot this, it's actually a reference to the first movie, when Doc was showing Marty the small scale simulation test.
Ready.
In the Forsaken DLC for Destiny 2, During one of the cutscenes, you can hear a similar line of dialogue that is a direct reference to the first movie when Marty is getting ready to play Johnny Be Good.
All right, partner, this is a Cade riff in 6. Watch me for the changes and try to keep up.
All right, guys, listen to this blues riff and B. Watch me for the changes and try and keep up, okay?
And the final game for today's video will be in King's Quest. Within this episodic reboot, there are a bunch of movie references crammed into this reimagining of the classic adventure game. And a lot of that has to do with the cast of actors that they chose for the characters. The game's main protagonist is narrated by Christopher Lloyd, who's sitting in a bed telling his granddaughter a story about his adventurous past of how he became king. Sound kind of familiar? Well, that's sort of similar to how the story was told in Princess Bride. Towards the end of Chapter 1, they had a minigame portion that involves the king-to-be, Prince Graham, trying to outsmart the little knight Manny, voiced by Wallace Shawn.
This all seems so familiar.
Interesting choice of cast again, and I think it was done on purpose, just so they can brilliantly recreate the Battle of Wits poison wine scene from The Princess Bride.
I know where the poison is.
Then make your choice.
I will, and I choose... What in the world can that be?
What? Where? I don't see anything.
After successfully beating the minigame, Graham will shout out in excitement where Christopher Lloyd's narration kicks in to make a Back to the Future joke.
I did it! I did it! Guards, I am ready for Decree 3214.6 and a half.
Actually, I think it was Decree 1.21.
Well, that's all I have for you for this video. Stay tuned for the final part, which is already scheduled to go live next Friday. This will include the remaining references to Back to the Future. Hope you enjoyed, and have a good one, everybody.